What is going on YouTube? Carter here with Edged Mindset. We're going to be taking a look at a cool new OTF knife here. This is the Heretic Manticore X limited edition from Smoky Mountain Knife Works. This thing is pretty cool. Really happy to get it. So we're going to be doing an in-depth look at this, and primarily we're going to be comparing it to Microtech, and there's a reason for that. Let's do it right now. Let's tell you the reason. All right, so Heretic Knives is owned and operated, created, brainchilded by Tony Jr., Tony Marfione Jr. So Tony Sr. is the equivalent of all that for Microtech Knives. So this is the company of the son of Tony Marfione Sr. of Microtech Knives, right? So there was a little bit of beefing, I think, when Tony Jr. started this company at the very beginning. Things are cool now, everything's good. Oftentimes they share a booth at shows and things like that. So this is his son's company. So I think that's kind of important to keep in mind because I am going to be doing a comparison between this and the Combat Troodon, which in my mind is the equivalent of Heretic's. This is Heretic's equivalent in their line of that knife, both in terms of size and function and kind of this is the niche that this particular model, the Manticore X, fills for Heretic, is the same as the Combat Troodon does for Microtech. So there's a lot of similarities there, and there's a lot of room for comparison and some cool things I want to point out. Before we start, let's take a look at the packaging. Real quick, in case you want to know what you get. Standard box. It's similar to a Microtech cardboard box. This particular one, and I've seen this before, does come with some lube, some oil for your OTF. So this is OTF lube. Really for OTFs, what you're looking at is you want something really, really thin. So like rem oil, things like that. Really, really thin. Thinner the better. It's going to keep it from getting gummed up, and it's just going to be better. These also come with a synthetic material. I guess you'd call this microfiber little pouch, which is cool because Microtech only comes in a little plastic baggie. So, half a point to a point. I guess we're doing a point system goes to Heretic Knives in terms of basic packaging that you get. Let's do some specs on this guy real quick. This is the largest of the Manticore series. I believe it's the largest of all the Heretics. I could be wrong on that. So just under, so about 3 3/4 inch blade. Total length is 9 1/4 ish about, and that's from tip to glass breaker, 9 1/4. So good sized knife, but not anything too crazy for you knife fanatics out there. Let's compare it to a Paramilitary 2. You can see right there it is considerably longer. If you look at the closed length on here, it's kind of what you're looking at. Longer handle, obviously not nearly as wide though. Width, let's do that. It's about the same-ish. The Para 2 is about the same as the Manticore. This is a very slim carryable knife, by the way, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Let's do probably the one that's the most pertinent, right? Combat Troodon. So you can see overall length is very, very similar. The Combat Troodon with the glass breaker pommel piece here is a little bit longer. However, if you remove that, then the Manticore is a little bit longer. And the Manticore has a similar type feature with this glass breaker pommel piece, but it's built in, right? It's not removable. Can't take it off. Now, doesn't really make a big difference because you can technically replace this. You can find something that has the same threads, put it in the end here, but nothing is specifically made for that purpose. So it would be some random bolt or some random screw you'd put in there. But technically, you could remove this glass breaker if you wanted, and I'm surprised nobody's created one on the aftermarket, kind of a nicer cap to put in Combat Troodons and things. But with the Manticore here, you don't have that option. The glass breaker ball is embedded right in the handle, and then you've got the lanyard loophole built in right here instead of, on this particular model, there is no lanyard hole. Sometimes it's incorporated into this side of the pocket clip on here. So what do we have? Let's get into it, all right? We'll come back and do some comparisons here because there's a lot there. Well, actually, first, let's do a weight check. I really want to do a comparison weight between the two here. However, it's not exactly apples to apples, and you'll see that here. So 4.2 ounces on the Manticore. The Combat Trudon, 5.3 ounces, so almost an ounce. Or wait, I forgot what it weighed, but around an ounce more. But not really apples to apples because this is part carbon fiber. So if you get the standard full aluminum version of this, it's going to be a little bit heavier than what we have here. However, still lighter than a Combat Trudon. So keep that in mind. So what do we have here? What materials are we looking at? Well, titanium pocket clip. Let's start there. Let's start at the butt here. So you've got the glass breaker, like I mentioned, incorporated into the handle with the lanyard hole right there. This has a titanium pocket clip with a ceramic ball thingamajig. Ceramic ball, I guess you'd call that the clip portion of the pocket clip. So rather than having it sprung so that it pushes against the scale, it has this ball in here. I like it. I hear some people don't like the ceramic ball pocket clips. I have no idea why. I think it's cool. I think they look cool. I think they function great. I know some people don't like it. They struggle with getting it in their pocket. I've never had that issue. Obviously, it'll vary based off of all the other things on the pocket clip, you know, how much spring tension it has, how big the ball is, things like that. But in general, I think it's a really cool looking and very functional way to do a pocket clip. So this is the new style pocket clip Heretic uses now. They used to do an old bent steel pocket clip with like, I think it was an M. So even though it's Heretic knives, they use like an M for the logo, I assume for Marfion, or maybe it's supposed to be an H. I guess it's right here. So I don't know if that's supposed to be an M or an H. I don't know if it's M for Marfion or H for Heretic. Never fully understood what that is, but that used to be on the pocket clip. It was a little big, it was a little gaudy. So this new style, I think, is chef's kiss. Very nice. Absolutely love it. Aluminum handle, 6160, standard stuff, nothing above and beyond. So that's about average there. I do like how they limit the billboarding just to the side here. Heretic knives, Manticore X, serial number 204 USA. They don't do any printing on the blade other than the blade steel, which is very subtly kind of put right there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Nothing else on here. So this isn't the best example, honestly. Probably should have got a different Trudon because this doesn't really show. You know, one of the complaints with Microtech is the amount of billboarding on the thing. You know, they got logos everywhere. Usually they've got a big eagle claw right here. They've got the Microtech logo on the blade. This is a signature series, so it doesn't have all of that. It just has a signature here. But normally you'd have stuff all over this knife. Heretic Knives avoids that in all their models. Very clean, very simple, very elegant type look, as you can see here. So on this side, we have carbon fiber blue camo top on here. This is part of the, I believe it's a Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive Nightcrawler edition is what they call it. However, you can buy fat carbon fiber tops on this knife all the time, right? It's a whole line they do. They do different colors, different types of carbon fiber, so that's all available. Blade here is the Recurve. So this is their Recurve blade style. As you can see, very simple, very clean, very elegant. The blade steel on this one is Magnacut, which I believe is also part of the Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive. Normally, I think this comes in LMAX, but I know they do other knives in Magnacut, and maybe you can get other editions in Magnacut, but that's what this one's in, which is very cool. Has a two-tone finish, has, looks like acid etched on the primary bevels, and satin flats, and then the whole thing is tumbled, as you can see. Kind of creates an interesting look to it. I never used to like the tumbled over kind of a satin or polished blade, but I'm starting to come around. If it's done right, And it's done kind of like this, where it's obvious enough that it's supposed to be there. I think it looks good. Only time I don't like it is when they don't quite tumble it enough, and it just looks like the blade is scuffed up or scratched, and it looks kind of off. So one thing that I like about this blade is it looks very recurvy, right? It's not. If you actually look at the secondary bevel, it has a very slight recurve on the edge. In fact, it almost is hardly noticeable at all. It almost just looks like a drop point. But what they've done here is when they ground the primary bevel there and the swedge on top, it creates a flat that has more of a pronounced recurve. So at first glance, it looks, oh yeah, that's very wavy. That's a very wavy blade. But the actual edge, pretty slight recurve. So sharpening and things like that won't be heavily affected. You should be able to use this and sharpen it relatively easy. It's not a heavy recurve. It is technically a recurve, but it is not a super pronounced one. So you still get some of the benefit of having this belly up here in front for draw cuts and things like that. But hopefully the sharpening and stuff won't be as intense. Some other features here. The button. I don't know if this is titanium or aluminum. I'd assume aluminum for a regular production knife like this. I mean, it's, exclusive, but still. But it looks a little dark for aluminum. Now, that could be anodizing on there and then tumbled, which is probably what it is. But I really like the activation button. See how much wider it is than the Combat Trudon? Even though the handle is not any wider, the actual edge here is wider, and so they're able to incorporate a wider button. I like the steps on here. I like the texture on top. It's really easy to use. It is symmetrical both ways. Really like this button. Works very, very well. Going back to the pocket clip, something I forgot to mention, this is right-hand carry only. Now, being a double action OTF, you can carry this left-handed, and it just means you have to turn it around to hit the activation button. Not the end of the world, but it is not reversible, whereas on the Combat Trudon, you can unscrew this cap here, you can switch this pocket clip over to this side, and you're good to go, and it's fully reversible. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, when we're talking about what is the design philosophy here, right? So what is Heretic Knives? In my opinion, Heretic Knives is trying to answer a lot of the criticisms that younger people have towards Microtech, right? What are some of the things people say about Microtech knives, especially the younger generation? They say it's a little too tactical, the whole black double edge tactical fighting knife thing. They say it has too many logos and billboards. It's too many stark colors and sharp angles, and it's just kind of intense and angular and tactical and all those things. And so in my mind, what Tony Jr. tried to do is answer some of those criticisms. And he made a much cleaner, simpler, softer, elegant style OTF with an emphasis on weight reduction and carryability, because that's kind of what you really, really get with this knife. No sharp angles, no sharp colors, no duotone blades. Everything is nice, curvy, everything is soft, everything is slim. There's no extra spikes or angles or things hanging off of here. You can see even though it has a glass breaker, it's not as intense as like the Microtech. Much slimmer, much lighter. You can see the overall width. So the Microtech Combat Trudon gets pretty dang fat. It slims up towards the front here, but about right here in the middle, it gets pretty chunky. It's a chunky dude. And then you also have more width going on. So even though it's the same length, the Manticore is much easier to carry, much lighter, much slimmer, much smoother, kind of a more elegant OTF choice. In my opinion, that's kind of what I've thought they've gone for. Now, I could be wrong because they've got some models that have some of these characteristics I talked about, where it's a little more aggressive, a little more tactical. But particularly in this Manticore series, there's 3 different sizes. The X, which is the biggest, the E in the middle, and the S, which is the smallest. They all kind of have this EDC carryability type mindset to it. And I think it's cool. I think it's a breath of fresh air. Now, it's not really my choice. I tend to like the gaudy, intense, ridiculous things. This one I got because it was such an amazing price. I love this carbon fiber. It looks absolutely beautiful. All the features you get, the steel, I couldn't pass it up. I'm glad I've got this Manticore X. I'm going to keep it. It's really, really nice. I don't think I'm going to get a lot of Heretic knives. So I've got one other one, but everything else, it just really doesn't do that much for me. I like my stuff over the top and ridiculous. I mean, if you watch my channel, I like giant cold steel knives and ridiculous custom microtechs and huge heavy folders, all that dumb, unnecessary stuff. I love it. I eat it up. It's what gets me excited. But this one here really looks nice, and I'm glad I've got it in my collection. I think it kind of adds to my overall portfolio of OTF knives in kind of a cool, different way. So the other thing to keep in mind with these Heretics is you're going to get much better value out of a Heretic knife than a microtech knife. You're just going to get more. For the price on this, I would expect to pay double or triple for the equivalent in a microtech knife. If you got a combat Trudon with a carbon fiber top, especially kind of a premium carbon fiber like this, not just normal carbon fiber, extra super steel like this Magnacut, titanium pocket clip, like you would pay double or triple the cost. You can get a lot more for your money from Heretic knives, and you're not sacrificing any quality whatsoever. I would say the quality of these knives are exactly the same. The Combat Trudon fires a little harder. It also means it's a little harder to activate and manipulate. The Heretic is a little bit softer, but it's also a little bit easier to manipulate and fire. Both of them are super smooth. Both of them have about the same amount of blade play. Overall construction, everything seems on par. Now, when we're talking about QC, the number of knives that get out of the shop with issues, I have no idea what that looks like. I don't know if Heretic does a little better, worse, same, whatever the case may be. But in terms of the features you get, you're just going to get more from a Heretic knife than you are from a microtech, because microtechs have a little bit more hype, bigger fan base. They're able to charge more money for less knife than something like this Heretic. So, all right, guys. So that is an overview on the Heretic Manticore X. Wanted to go over the features, what you get. This really wasn't meant as a, is an OTF a good knife choice in general? That's really a whole video in and of itself. If carrying something like this makes sense for your EDC needs, I really wanted to just do an overview on this particular knife, pros, cons, let you know that you're not missing out on anything from a microtech in terms of quality, action, things like that, but you do gain some really cool features like this beautiful carbon fiber that just looks so amazing. All right, guys, take it easy. I am out of here. Have a good weekend. Have a good week. Whatever time it is that you're watching this. I wish you the best for you, your family, your friends, everybody involved. So, all right, guys, talk to you later.